And we're back here on episode 306 of #AskGSM, here today for Wednesday, October 9th, 2019. I am Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well. And a hell of a week we had last week between the debut of AEW Dynamite on TNT, NXT going head-to-head with it that same night on USA, the Friday night Fox premiere of Smackdown, which was very enjoyable. We had the season premiere of Raw, whatever the hell that means. And then, obviously, Hell in a Cell on Sunday. A very poor way of closing out what was a great week. The show really was not all that good. It wasn't the worst show I've ever seen, but that main event was something else. We're going to get into that soon enough. But thankfully, things have kind of gone back to normal this week, which is nice. Not nearly as much going on. But we do have Dynamite tonight, NXT as well. 2 great episodes on tap. Very excited for them both. But let's get right into it. We have a ton of questions on tap for you fine folks here today. From you, fine folks. If you want to send in a question, you could do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with #AskGSM. Find me on Facebook at facebook.com/gram.gsm.matthews. Leave a question on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section of this very video. I'll include your comment, or question rather, in next week's edition. So first question comes from, FD from Facebook, his first question was. And he had a ton of questions, some of which I kind of just cut up the dialogue a little bit because we don't have too much time, and some of his questions kind of ran a little long, but I'm just going to get to the gist of what he's asking here. The first one being, does the Hell in a Cell match alone already have ruined any momentum and push The Fiend had and ruined Seth Rollins' reputation as a top star overall? So, let's address the elephant in the room right from the get-go here and talk about the Hell in a Cell main event from Sunday night, which was absolutely atrocious. One of the worst endings to a pay-per-view I've ever seen in this company. And that's saying a lot. That's including, Battleground 2013, which was fucking terrible. We had, Daniel Bryan and Randy Orton for the WWE Championship. Big Show came out, knocked them both out, and that was the end of the show. No new WWE champion, no real finish either. The match was just over. It just abruptly ended. Not even a ring of the bell, I don't think anyway. It was a really bad ending. But this blew that out of the water. This was like, that was like, WrestleMania 30 compared to what we saw on Sunday with Bray Wyatt and Seth Rollins. This was outrageously stupid. And I know they wanted to protect The Fiend, and I appreciate that, but the way they went about it was so goddamn convoluted that it doesn't really help anybody. If anything, it hurts everybody involved. The Fiend is not ruined. He doesn't have the same momentum he did before coming off this performance. I know he kicked out of like 12 curb stomps, but that doesn't even really make him look strong. It just looks fucking ridiculous. Like, I'm all for making people look strong, like, Brock Lesnar kicked out of, or Roman Reigns, I think, kicked out of, 5 F5s at WrestleMania 34? You can't knock the WWE for that, and then not knock them for doing dumb shit like this. Not even, talking about the finish for a second, not even, taking that into, factoring that into the equation here for a moment. The fact that Bray Wyatt kicked out of, 12 curb stomps, and a pedigree and everything else, I don't care if he's a fiend, a zombie, whatever the hell it is. It was just dumb. Because it makes the finish, it makes the move look completely useless. Doesn't do anything for Rollins. Doesn't do anything for Wyatt. Because the guy, endured all this punishment, yet still couldn't get up before the end of the match. Yet he got up anyway afterward to lay out Rollins with the mandible claw. So what was even the point? The whole thing was a goddamn mess. Rollins' reputation as a top star, I mean, the guy's not a top star. He is a top star. I don't care what you think about him, his booking. A lot of the disdain for the Seth Rollins character, and even himself, the person, I guess, right now, comes from the booking. Now, I know he said a lot of dumb shit on Twitter earlier this summer, with a Will Ospreay and, that whole thing, and stuff he said in interviews about Jon Moxley. That kind of rubbed people the wrong way, and rightfully so. But in terms of everything that's been going on with his character for the better part of 2019 is not his fault. The fact that he took this, massive beating from Brock Lesnar before SummerSlam and then still somehow prevailed to beat Brock at that pay-per-view for the Universal Championship made absolutely no sense. The match was great, but it made absolutely no sense. And then you do this dumb shit with him. The promo was he's been cutting on Raw for the last, number of months now have not been good. The booking and presentation of his character really is not his fault. Because if you go back a year, not even like 2 or 3 years ago, but a year ago, when the guy first won the Intercontinental Championship, he was arguably the hottest star in the entire company. What the hell happened? And I've seen other people talk about this, and I was thinking about it I watched the show on Monday, so I was thinking about it on Monday night after the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. What the fuck happened? That was literally just 1 year ago that Rollins was arguably the hottest star in the entire company. They have since ruined any goodwill, any momentum this guy has had as a babyface. At this point, I would just turn him heel. And after the draft, before you couldn't really do that with the way the rosters kind of shook out, with Corbin being on Raw and McIntyre and Lashley and Brock. But coming out of this draft, hopefully they can get more heels over on SmackDown so Rollins can turn heel on Raw. And they can have more baby faces on the Raw brand. I would keep Rollins on Raw. I think he's a fine fit for Raw. He can be the face of the flagship show. That's fine. But at some point, they're going to need to turn him heel. Because, I know they kept him off the show this week, but it's not like, next week they'll forget all about it and they'll go back to cheering him. Not at all. This is not going to go away. At least not anytime soon. They're going to boo the hell out of Seth Rollins. At least his booking, and rightfully so, because it was bullshit on Sunday. But the match sucked. Did it ruin Bray Wyatt? No. The guy will be fine, I think. They've dropped the ball on him so many times before. This is nothing new. And again, they could have very easily just had him get pinned and have that be it. But clearly they're setting up a rematch, because if not, what the hell was the point of that match? I know there was no mention of a rematch on Monday's Raw, but they could very well be saving it for Survivor Series next month. So that's why, I don't know what the whole tweet and delete thing was about Survivor Series. They tweeted out the announcement, but deleted it. I guess that was true. I guess I didn't see the tweet myself. I was not on social media when it was announced. But there were spelling errors. There were weird grammar issues with the tweet. So I found it hard to believe that WWE tweeted it out, the actual official account. But nonetheless, does this ruin Rollins? Does it ruin Wyatt? Absolutely not. But it doesn't do them any favors, is what I'm trying to get at here. FD's second question. Speaking of MMA and SmackDown on Fox, is it just me, or do you agree that SmackDown on Fox, with the appearance of boxing star Tyson Fury and former UFC champion Cain Velasquez, felt like UFC Light or UFC 2.0, depending on which interpretation you prefer? Do you feel this concept of booking is the right move for both Fox and WWE in the long run, and why is bringing in MMA fighters the way to go for SmackDown? Is that the way WWE wants SmackDown to be going forward? So obviously they're doing this. It's SmackDown specifically, not just Raw. But I know they had Tyson Fury on Raw this week, but that was really just to kind of continue the momentum from what happened on SmackDown last week. And they have the draft on Friday, so they probably wanted to do the Tyson Fury, Braun Strowman, face-off on Raw this week to, generate some buzz, and I don't really think that it did. It probably will get some mainstream attention, but, the angle was fine, but the angle was far from what they did with Big Show and Floyd Money Mayweather over 10 years ago, or even, Mike Austin, Steve Austin, Stone Cold, and Mike Tyson, 2 decades ago. This was not that at all. I know they were trying to go for that sort of feel. They didn't quite capture it. It was a good angle. The crowd was into it. It was a nice brawl and whatnot, but far from the best brawl I've seen on the show in recent years. I think Taker and Brock was far better than this a few years ago. I think coming out of the Battleground 2015 pay-per-view. But anyway, Fox clearly wants to bring legitimacy to SmackDown. They want to make it a real sports show. That's been the talk about this show, the talk of SmackDown for the past year and a half, since Fox agreed to not buy SmackDown, but pretty much buy SmackDown and air it on their network for the foreseeable future. That, it doesn't surprise me at all. They had Cain Velasquez on the show, or, Tyson Fury. They want to make it the big sports show. It's airing on Fox. This is the type of stuff they want to talk about on their WWE Backstage show on Tuesday nights and recap on all their social medias and the website and stuff like that, stuff that Fox can talk about to make it on ESPN and other mainstream outlets. I get it. The Cain Velasquez thing, I don't really have that much of an issue with, to be honest with you. It didn't feel like UFC 2.0. It didn't feel like UFC Light. The Cain Velasquez thing, it's not completely random. It's not like they're bringing in random UFC athletes. The guy, to a certain extent, as I said a week ago, and I think Thomas actually asked me about it, and even FD actually asked me about it over a month ago, actually, I think in late August. about UFC stars and WWE like Cain Velasquez. So credit to him for calling that. But at least Cain has some wrestling experience. He was working with the AAA promotion for a little bit earlier this year before making the WWE debut. I guess he's still technically with UFC, which I did not know. I thought he had left the UFC a while ago, but I guess not. I guess he's just hurt right now. But he has the experience. He has history with Brock Lesnar, so it wasn't completely random, you know? It seems like they bring in people who either want to be there or have a reason to be there. Like Ronda Rousey was always a wrestling fan. It was really always a matter of when and not if she would make the move to WWE, and she did, and she fucking killed it. Brock Lesnar, I mean, the wrestling background was already there, but Matt Riddle's killed it. All these other UFC stars. I mean, Shayna Baszler wasn't a UFC star. She might have been signed to UFC, but, she was an MMA star. She's done really well for herself in NXT. I don't think Cain Velasquez will be any different. I think he's going to be, maybe not, I don't want to say the biggest star for them. We've yet to see one match from the guy. I don't want to, get too ahead of myself here, but I do think it'll work out. Now, the match could suck. The match could be terrible. I think I said that last week. It could be very hit or miss. I think the Brock Cain match could either be really, really good or really, really bad. I guess we'll find out likely come Crown Jewel on Halloween, because I assume that's when the match is going down. They're having a big media advisory thing on Friday, a big media press conference, whatever, with Cain, with Brock, with Braun, with Tyson Fury, likely to announce their respective matches for the upcoming pay-per-view. Cool, I guess. I'm looking forward to the match. I just hate the fact it's happening on that show. Fuck Crown Jewel. Fuck the whole Saudi Arabia controversy shit. Fuck it all. But anyway, I think it's cool for SmackDown. It'll definitely generate some buzz. That's not always the only thing you should be going for, but I like it. I like the history that Brock and Cain have. The match could be good. I'm not saying build the entire blue brand around these guys, around Cain and Brock Lesnar. But for right now, it's a cool angle, and we'll see where it goes. His next question, in your personal opinion, do you feel that last week, which is presumably the most important week in pro wrestling, has overall been a success for the WWE, including NXT, AEW, NWA, which yes, even though NWA Power is not premiering until last night, which is technically the week after the most important week in pro wrestling, but it still counts, Impact Wrestling and other pro wrestling companies, and why. So was last week's big week in wrestling a success? I would say it is. Absolutely. Raw got its highest rating in, I think, since August, with Monday's show. Since early August, if not late July. Which isn't saying a lot because the ratings have been shit for so long now. But hey, and it's an improvement. They brought in more viewers than they did the week before, so that's a plus. The show itself didn't light the world on fire. It really wasn't that newsworthy, but it was an alright show. NXT had a great show on Wednesday. They did less viewers than they did the week before, but it was probably one of, if not the best episode of NXT TV I've ever seen. It was that fucking good. The match, the entire show was amazing. They brought back Finn Balor, Tommaso Ciampa. Just a great, 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 great show. Obviously, AEW Dynamite, a ginormous success, doing 1.4 million viewers. Now, will they do that same amount of viewers tonight on TNT? I doubt it, just because that was episode 1. There's a lot of buzz, a lot of publicity around it, promotion. Who knows if those same people will stick around for week 2? I'm sure a big chunk of them will. Not everyone will. I hope to be wrong, though. I would love to be wrong. But the show was very good, and the rating was a big success, especially for us that, myself included, that thought it would only really bring in a couple 100,000 people, maybe 800,000. But then when the countdown special on last Tuesday, did 600,000 viewers, I'm like, okay, we're in for a big number. They may be able to crack 1 million. And then they blew way past that with 1.4 million. That's amazing. Maybe not compared to 10 years ago, but, by modern day standards, that is incredibly impressive. And then SmackDown also doing a big number. Probably not as big as they wanted. It was only really around 4 million. I think they were hoping for like 5 million or 6 million, which I believe is what the last big Friday night premiere on Fox did. It's not that big of a deal. The rating will likely not be that big after this week. I mean, the draft is on Friday. After next week, though, we'll really see what the ratings will look like every week for SmackDown moving forward. But overall, it was a great week in wrestling. Maybe with the exception of the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, which sucked. It was not good at all. The overall show wasn't terrible. but that main event really soured a lot of people on that show, and rightfully so. But like you said, Impact, they technically premiered on Access on Tuesday with their Homecoming pay-per-view, I think it was. And I didn't watch it. I've already seen the Homecoming pay-per-view, so I didn't need to watch it. But it's cool that Impact is on Access. They should be premiering their first episode of Impact Wrestling on Access, I think, at the end of the month. I want to say the 29th of October, if I'm not mistaken. Not the Tuesday right after Bound for Glory, but the week after that, which is cool. So we had that, and then NWA Power, which you mentioned as well. I'm not sure if I got any questions about that, so I might as well mention it now. I loved NWA Power last night. If you have yet to check it out, definitely do so. I'm not saying, oh, go watch it every single week. That's your own time. Spend it accordingly. But I thought it was a great first premiere episode of NWA Power. Now, I've not closely followed the NWA product at all. I know that Nick Aldis has been the champion for the better part of the past 2 years. I know that. I know they picked up Eli Drake a few months ago. Eli Drake. And James Storm, which is a great pickup. But I really didn't know that much else about the promotion until I saw the show last night. I love the old school throwback studio setting. I think that's awesome. There weren't any blowaway matches that you would see on NXT or on, Dynamite or whatever. But they introduced you to a lot of the new characters. A lot of people you likely would not have been familiar with before. I love the pre-match promos. I love the post-match promos. I love the video packages on certain people. It was really, really good. Only ran about an hour, and it was, short and sweet, straight to the point. Really good main event between Tim Storm and Nick Aldis for the NWA World's Heavyweight Championship. Really good show. So if you're on the fence about it, check out my full written review right now on nextdaywrestling.net. And then be sure to check it out. If not, just skim through it. It's on YouTube, on their NWA YouTube channel, which is great. I think that's very convenient. It makes it really easy for a person like me to watch. It's great if it's on TV, obviously, but not going to lie to you, I would rather have it on YouTube than on, like the Pursuit channel or a channel that no one gets. Like Ring of Honor is on, like, syndicated broadcast. Great for Ring of Honor. And they're probably making more money from that than the NWA is from having it on YouTube, but no one can ever fucking watch it. So that's why no one watches Ring of Honor. I mean, the show right now is missable anyway because they just air highlights from like weeks and months ago of shit we've already seen on Honor Club. But it makes it a lot harder for people to watch the shows if there's no one place to watch it and there's no one set day for it to debut or for it to air. We have that with the NWA, though. It airs on Tuesday nights at 6:05 p.m. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. So again, if you haven't already checked it out, definitely do so on their YouTube channel. It's well worth seeking out, if only for that first episode. At Reborn Again, John Ritland, awesome YouTube channel. Check it out. Real Honesty with John Ritland. I've yet to check out his Joker review, but I'm sure it's great. I saw the movie over the weekend with my roommate from college, his girlfriend, Alexis. We had a great time. Awesome movie. I love the movie. I can't say it's my favorite movie of 2019. It's probably one of the best movies of 2019. That goes without saying. I'm still partial to Endgame for obvious reasons, Avengers Endgame, but Joker was outstanding, so, and I just thought of that when I saw John's name here, so be sure to check out his review, and check out the movie itself. It was awesome. But his first question was, after the last 2 Universal Championship Hell in a Cell matches, is it time to scrap that match concept for the men? At least the women have delivered in that structure. I beg to differ. Now, obviously Sunday's match with Sasha and Becky was outstanding. I'm not going to argue with you on that. I thought the match was great. Easily the match of the night. I mean, that goes without saying. The feud has been really good. It was a great way to cap it off if that was indeed the end. I loved it. I thought it was a great match. Unfortunately, and this is coming from someone who was there. I mean, you may have your own opinion. That's fine. People may disagree. I thought that first one between Sasha and Charlotte 3 years ago sucked. It was easily the weakest match they had in that entire series that fall, that year, really. It was weaker than the Raw match, any of the Raw matches, whether it was, Falls Count Anywhere when they main evented Raw on the first Raw of the new era. It was weaker than the SummerSlam match. It was weaker than the Roadblock match. I was not a fan of the Hell in a Cell match. RJ and I, we joke about this all the time. It was easily the worst main event we have ever been in attendance for. If not the worst, one of the worst. The whole show was completely forgettable. But that main event sucked. They stalled for way too long on the outside. Just not great drama. The crowd was quiet, despite the fact it was Sasha's hometown. She lost. That didn't help either. But the finish felt flat because Charlotte botched their finisher, and then she tried to throw Sasha on a table and it didn't break. It was just one giant mess. So I wouldn't say, just have the Hell in a Cell for the women. I know what you're trying to get at here. In the last 2 Universal title Hell in a Cell matches for the men at that pay-per-view have just completely sucked. But I would take it one step further. I would say just scrap the whole pay-per-view as a whole. Only bring back the match when it's necessary. But again, they're not going to do that because if they were going to do that, they would have done it by now. We have been arguing against this Hell in a Cell pay-per-view for years. And people aren't going to like when I say this, but the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view has been around now almost longer than any other show with the exception of the Big Four. Hell in a Cell, TLC have been held every year now for a decade. It debuted over a decade ago. How crazy is that? It's been around almost as long as Backlash. By next year, it would have surpassed Backlash, which is crazy. I know they brought back Backlash in 2016, but I'm talking consecutively. We've had every single year has had a Hell in a Cell pay-per-view since 2009. That's crazy. For one of the weaker pay-per-views all year. And the matches aren't usually that good. I mean, Becky and Sasha was great, and the Usos and New Day a couple years ago was great. But that's really about it. 2 Hell in a Cell matches in a decade. That's not a great track record. Bring back the match when it's necessary. Don't hold it at the same time every year. Oh, it's October. It's time for Hell in a Cell. I hate that shit. I fucking hate that shit with a burning passion. Scrap the show. It's not necessary. Rollins and Wyatt had no reason to be inside the cell. Maybe for the, aesthetics with the Fiend being inside the cell and the red lighting, cool. But beyond that, there was no reason to have this match inside the cell. The feud just fucking started. So I would scrap the show, but I know they won't because if they were going to, they would have done it a long time ago. His second question, outside of Crown Jewel, because Saudi Arabia, is Hell in a Cell the worst WWE pay-per-view of the year? I mean, Crown Jewel hasn't happened yet, so we can't say it's the worst show of the year. Maybe it may very well be amazing, but like you said, it's Saudi Arabia. The last 3 Saudi Arabia shows they've done have been terrible, so I'm not getting my hopes up. I'm kind of setting the bar low. But then again, I set the bar low for Crown Jewel, and that show was still way worse than I ever imagined it being. That show was one of the worst pay-per-views I've ever seen. Hell in a Cell, though, for 2019, I mean, Crown Jewel, the first one was last year. For 2019, this is easily the worst pay-per-view of the year by far. Absolutely. Super Showdown sucked, too. That was probably the weakest show all year. But this, I think, beat that out. I think it did. I think Hell in a Cell might have had some better matches, because at least Hell in a Cell had that one great match between Sasha and Becky, okay? And Super Showdown didn't really have any great matches. They were all, average at best. It was a very mediocre pay-per-view and that just terrible main event that fell apart within minutes between Goldberg and The Undertaker. But I don't know, I feel like this show had way worse build. They just did not give 2 shits about it. The main event was terrible, way worse than Goldberg and Taker, just because it hurt Rollins, it hurt Wyatt, it hurt the company. The timing could not be worse because there's a real alternative now with AEW airing on Wednesdays, with Dynamite on Wednesdays. So if people aren't happy with WWE, they'll go ahead and go watch the opposition, I think Hell in a Cell was a worse show overall. Maybe not by much, because again, there weren't really many, if any, memorable matches on that, Super Showdown show. At least memorable for the right reasons. It was not a good show. But I do think Hell in a Cell was worse, just because they added matches at the last minute, unlike Super Showdown. They actually put effort into the build for that show, unfortunately. They put 0 effort into building this card up, and they had some good matches, again, with Becky and Sasha, and then Bryan and Roman versus Harper and Rowan, which was a really, really good match as well. The show fell apart after that. The show was a complete disaster from that point forward. And that main event just sucked. It was a really, really bad match between Rollins and Wyatt. That was very damaging overall to a lot of different people. So I would say Hell in a Cell was the worst pay-per-view of 2019. And, there was no build. There was no fallout. 0 fallout on Raw the next night. They just tried to forget all about it because they knew they fucked up. They knew the show sucked. And they want people to forget about it as quickly as possible. A lot like Crown Jewel last year. So again, I do think Hell in a Cell, as of right now anyway, unless Crown Jewel on Halloween is somehow way worse, which I'm not sure how it could be, but I guess it could be if they really tried. If they really put effort into it, they could somehow produce a way worse show than they did for Hell in a Cell. But as of right now, Hell in a Cell, in my opinion, is the worst pay-per-view for WWE in 2019. His next question. So heel Asuka and Kairi Sane out of nowhere. Good or bad? I like it. Honestly, it's better than nothing. Because before, I could not give two shits about these women. I love Kairi Sane. I love Asuka. But they were doing next to nothing in this company. They had been spinning their wheels for months. I'm just assuming they're heel. I mean, based off what we saw on Sunday at the pay-per-view, then on Raw the next night, they cheated both times. Now it's green mist. Is it cheating? Because Tajiri used to do it all the time. I mean, I would say so. But it's just their mannerisms and everything else that they've kind of, their promos on Monday, everything else, the way they've carried themselves since Sunday, to me says they're heels. So I think they're heel. I think that's good. Hey, it's better than nothing. I think Asuka can really shine as a heel. Kairi Sane, we have yet to see her as a heel. But, personally, I was hoping for Asuka and Sane to split up in the draft. I would put Asuka on Raw, keep Kairi Sane on SmackDown. But, they won the tag title, so clearly that's not happening. But again, it's better than nothing. They won the tag titles. That division is dead anyway. They finally won them. Better than nothing. Kairi Sane's a champion on the main roster. Cool. Asuka's a champion again. Cool. Again, it's better than what they were doing before. So it might not be saying much, but it's a slight step in the right direction. Just a little bit. A little, it's not great, but it's better than what they were doing before. I'll put it that way. His next question. What do you think of AEW showing their dark matches from the previous week's episode? A good marketing strategy, or will it become overdone? I like the idea a lot. I think it's a great idea in theory. I liked last night's premiere episode of AEW Dark. There weren't any blowaway matches, but again, they're dark matches. It's no different than what WWE does with main event, although 10 times better because the matches are better. They actually count towards, the win and loss records. They actually matter. The show matters, and the crowd's into it, and they're previewing the next week's episode. So, I was originally thinking, why don't they just air the show on Thursday so the matches don't feel outdated? Why not just air it the next night after Dynamite so they can, follow up and recap what happened on Dynamite? But I think they're doing it on Tuesdays so they can have like a preview show before Dynamite on Wednesdays. Now, they do announce matches in advance. They could do that on Thursdays too. But they've announced more matches since last week that they were able to preview, that Tony Schiavone was able to preview on AEW Dark last night because the matches were announced over the weekend or on Monday, whatever. So I don't think it's a bad idea. The show was good. It's not must-see by any means, but I thought it was very good. And again, it's another great use of their dark matches. It's not like they're just doing dark matches for the sake of doing dark matches, just to get the crowd hyped up, which is great. But they're actually using them, and they matter, and they're counting towards storylines, I assume. We didn't really see much of that last night, but, they had some pretty notable names on the show. They weren't just job guys. Like, we had Darby Allin, the Lucha Bros were on the show, Britt Baker, SCU, Jurassic Express. It was a pretty jam-packed show. I really enjoyed it, so they might lose their way with it at some point. It might become like what main event is to WWE, who knows? But so far, so good. I think it's a great idea. And will it become overdone over time? Possibly. But I think it's a good marketing strategy, if only to preview the next night's episode, recap what happened last week, and give some people some more TV time. They have a great roster, and they can't fit everyone into a 3-hour, or rather a 2-hour time period. I would rather they do less is more with AEW Dynamite, and then feature the extra people that couldn't make the broadcast on Wednesday, feature them on AEW Dark. So they're not completely left out of the loop for, weeks on end. I think that's very, very, very smart. At that, what she said, 86, their question was, how awesome would CM Punk versus Alistair Black be at WrestleMania? That would indeed be awesome. There would be more, let's say CM Punk came back for one more match. I'm not saying he is. I don't think he will anyway. I think he will be back in WWE soon enough. Maybe not in the near future, but down the road. I've said that since day one. Since the moment he left, I said, I guarantee you he will be back. That's just my gut feeling. Maybe not in a wrestling role, could very well just be for the Hall of Fame. And, if the Fox thing comes to fruition with the WWE backstage role as an analyst, that wouldn't technically be him returning to WWE. That's not what I'm talking about. But in a perfect world, if CM Punk was to wrestle again, would my dream opponent for him be Alistair Black? No. Obviously it would be someone like an AJ Styles or like a Kevin Owens, where the promos would be awesome if they went back and forth at each other. Maybe a renewal of an old rivalry with Daniel Bryan, someone like that. But I know Randy Orton said that he wants a piece of CM Punk. He said he would love to face him. It would not be Alistair Black, but If CM Punk came back for a full-on run and he was having matches on Raw or SmackDown every week, then yeah, sure, I would love to see Punk and Alistair. But if Punk had one more match left, I don't know if Alistair would be my top pick. I know that's not your question, but I'm just saying Punk and Alistair, not a match I ever really thought about happening. It would be a great match, but there are other people I would like to see Punk face if he came back for one more match, which I don't think he will. But if he did, there are people I would like to see him face before Alistair Black. That's just my opinion, though. At noob_n_co1991, their question was, what are your thoughts on the Kabuki Warriors turning heel this past Sunday, and why did the Kabuki Warriors turn heel? Again, I think it's just to freshen up the division. They only have three or four teams probably in the women's tag team division in WWE. They have the Kabuki Warriors, the Iconics, Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross for now, and Fire and Desire, Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville. That's it. That's all they have. Maybe they'll make more teams coming out of the draft. I don't know. But that's all they had. Alexa Bliss and Cross already beat, Bliss and Cross already beat the Iconics. They already beat Fire and Desire multiple times. They already beat the Kabuki Warriors, to be honest with you. They already beat them, I think, on the Raw after SummerSlam. They beat them to retain their women's tag team titles. There was no one else for them to defend against, so they took the belts off of them. They put them on the Kabuki Warriors just to freshen up the Warriors and to freshen up the division and Cross and Bliss, even though they just won the belts like a month and a half ago, but whatever. That's probably why they did it. And again, the Kabuki Warriors were doing nothing before, so this is a step in the right direction, and I'm glad they're finally doing something of note on this show. Their second question, who will Becky Lynch drop the Raw Women's Championship to if she's rumored to be drafted to SmackDown? I don't think she will. I think if she was going to SmackDown, which I kind of had a hunch that she would, just because she's been all over the advertising for SmackDown, and if they can't move Ronda Rousey, who would be perfect for that show, then I think Becky Lynch would be the next best guess. Just because Ronda Rousey's out for the foreseeable future, and there's no bigger star in that company right now, other than Ronda Rousey, than Becky Lynch. Obviously Charlotte's up there too, but I think Becky's a bigger star right now than Charlotte. I think they would rather have Becky over Charlotte on SmackDown. I think that's the case. But because Becky's still the Raw Women's Champion and Charlotte is the new SmackDown Women's Champion, I would assume unless they swap titles, because those championships obviously aren't switching shows, they're going to keep Becky on Raw and they're going to keep Charlotte on SmackDown, which is fine. I could see them switching Bayley and Banks, though, to give Charlotte and Sasha, or Charlotte and Becky, rather, some new opponents. But at the same time, though, they got to build around more women than just the 4 horsewomen. You can't go right back to Bayley and Becky and then Sasha and Charlotte again. They got to start building up. I don't even know, honestly, who else do they even have on their roster? Lacey Evans, she lost in a fucking Natalya on Raw this week. And Natalya, I don't care to see her challenge for the championship again. They have them, Ember Moon. Where the hell has she been? They have a lot of talented women they're doing nothing with right now. Sarah Logan is really good. They've done nothing with her since they split up the Riot Squad. She's faced Dana Brooke probably no less than 1,000,000 times on main event, but that's about it. So, yeah. I don't think Becky is dropping the Raw Women's Championship, at least not before the draft, because if she was going to, she would have on Sunday at the show, at two Sasha Banks at Hell in a Cell. So I think she's going to remain on Raw, and Charlotte will remain on SmackDown. Ultimately, who do I see her dropping the championship to? I thought it would be Sasha Banks. I really thought Sasha would win. It's not a big deal that she didn't. At this point, they probably might just wait until they call up Shayna Baszler to have her beat Becky for the belt. And it would make sense, because Shayna's Ronda's best friend, and Shayna can say, oh, you chased her out of WWE, blah, 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 I'm getting revenge for my friend. And it just makes sense. It just makes sense. And she's been dominant in NXT since she arrived. It's not like she's undefeated. She's been beaten before. So they don't need to have her vacate the NXT Women's Championship and come up to the main roster. I think that'd be dumb. I know they did that with Asuka. They did it with Paige. They don't need to do that with Shayna. Shayna has been built up for so long. And I know they did something similar with Asuka again. And it was kind of questionable then, but at least she was undefeated, so I get it. Shayna is not undefeated. They can have her lose the championship, because when she does, it's going to be a big moment when she gets beaten by whoever it is in NXT. Probably Dakota Kai at this point, which would be great given their history. So hopefully they don't have her vacate the championship. I saw people talking about that, which would be dumb. But Hopefully Becky's still champion by the time they call up Shayna Baszler, whether it be by the end of 2019 or the beginning of 2020, because I think, as I said, that would be a great feud and a really good match. At Brett Bullet 10, his first question was, thoughts on wrestling companies like the NWA and MLW putting their weekly wrestling shows on YouTube? Very smart, I think. Not everyone can do it. They can't put Raw on YouTube, like they would lose millions of dollars in TV rights. Millions of dollars, like the primetime players used to say. Obviously, companies like WWE can't do that with shows like Raw, SmackDown, NXT, whatever. They should probably do it for a show like Main Event, but it's not that big of a deal because no one watches the show anyway. I do think it's really smart. You mentioned, or you forgot AEW Dark. They're airing on YouTube as well. I don't watch MLW. I probably should have got into it sooner. I heard the product is great from what I have seen, from what I've heard. If I started it sooner, I probably would have gotten into it, but I don't want to go back and rewatch every episode. I don't want to start now. There's just a lot more wrestling out there. But I did watch NWA Power, like I said earlier. Thought it was great. And I watched the first episode of AEW Dark as well. So I think it's really smart. It's convenient. I love YouTube. It's probably even more convenient than airing the episodes on their website, which can, YouTube, everyone gets YouTube. Like, you can watch it on your phone. You can watch it on your tablet, laptop, Roku, whatever it might be, your Xbox, everybody gets YouTube, and it's free. So I think it's great. I love the fact that more wrestling companies are doing that. And again, they may not be making those millions of dollars off of TV rights, but again, I mean, this is their choice. But I'd rather them air their show on a place where everyone can see it, that has a ton of exposure like YouTube, as opposed to, putting it up on their website or putting it behind a paywall or on a network where no one can see it. At least at that point, they may be making some money off the TV deals and whatever, but no one's watching the show, so there's zero buzz. Like, look at Ring of Honor, like I said earlier. They air on the Sinclair Broadcasting Network. I don't have Sinclair, so I have to watch the show on Honor Club every week, or Fight TV if they air it on Mondays there. Like, it's great they air on Fight for free on Monday nights, but no one is talking about the show. They've been on Fight now for 3 years, and the show has no buzz. So I would just put it on YouTube at this point, to be honest with you. Brett's second question, should more heels try to be hated instead of being the cool heel? Absolutely. I mean, this has been the case for so long now, probably dating back to the NWO in WCW. They were likely, I would argue, the first cool heels in professional wrestling, and ever since, a lot of heels have gone for that likability factor as opposed to that real heat. I think MJF is, among the last breed of real heels that go out there to generate genuine heat, which I think is great. We don't really have that. Like, for example, I love the Undisputed Era. The Undisputed Era are awesome. They're cool heels, though. They do not do enough to get booed by the crowd. They would rather get cheered and be beloved and blah, 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 Adam Cole, baby, than go out there and be booed. Like MJF. He doesn't have any catchphrases. I mean, he does, but the people don't go along with them, and if they do, he's going to shut that shit right down, We need less cool heels in wrestling. Because I don't care, not that I don't care, but when the Undisputed Era lose their championships, when that time comes for them to lose their titles, I'm not going to be like, oh, yay, unless I really like that babyface. I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm paying to see the Undisputed Era get their asses kicked. That's such an old school mentality, but it still does work. I would pay to see Shayna Baszler get beat for that NXT Women's Championship, because she doesn't go for the heat. She doesn't go for the cool heat or whatever it is, the cheers. She is not a cool heel. She's a genuine badass. She doesn't give a shit about you. She doesn't give a shit about me. She would rather go out there and break arms and shit like that than go out there and appease you, than appeal to you, than, do shit for your cheers, which I think is great. I think that's great. We need more heels like Shayna Baszler. We need more heels like MJF. We need more heels like that. I'm not saying cool heels don't have a place in wrestling, but there is way too many of them in 2019. We need less cool heels and more genuine heels in the vein of MJF and Shayna Baszler. At Jeremy8911 from Twitter, his first question was, should Daniel Bryan or Kevin Owens be moved to the Raw roster in the draft and replace Seth Rollins as the top male face on Raw? I don't think so. I mean, Rollins is still the Universal Champion. They're not moving, obviously, the Universal Championship to SmackDown. It's a red belt. I think that remains put on Raw. I mean, every once in a while, they used to switch the World Championships a few years ago in the WWE draft, but with the Universal title being red, I don't think there's any chance they put that belt on SmackDown. I'd be very shocked if they did. And they shouldn't do that anyway. Like Rollins, I mean, Kevin Owens is the new face of Raw. I mean, that could work. He's only just getting his feet wet as a babyface right now. But I'd rather have him just stay put on SmackDown, to be honest with you. Daniel Bryan, I guess, but can he really be the face of anything at this point? The guy's been around for so long. He's probably closer to the end of his career than the beginning. If the guy gets hurt one more time, they're fucked. I'm not saying don't put the championship on Daniel Bryan again. I mean, he was the WWE champion for like 5 months earlier this year, and it was a great reign. But Bryan is the top face on Raw, like, what is this, 2014? I love the guy and he's amazing, but like, I think Rollins, for as many flaws as his character has, and he might not be nearly as likable as Daniel Bryan, but at least he's a fresher face in the main event scene as the face of Raw than Daniel Bryan. I feel like we're back in 2013, 2014 if he is. You know, I'd rather have Daniel Bryan doing his thing over on SmackDown, killing it over there in the mid-card, upper mid-card, main event, whatever, than on Raw wrestling, I don't even know, Bray Wyatt again? You know, after 5 years, or who else is even on? I mean, obviously, the draft will shake things up, but I feel like Bryan is the face of Raw. Been there, done that. He's not the face of anything anymore. He could have been before he got hurt all those times years ago, but he got hurt, and that was it. They flushed that opportunity down the toilet, so not anymore. Rollins, I think, is a better fit for that role than, honestly, anyone right now. I mean, even AJ's on his way out. He's kind of doing his thing as the U.S. champion, which is fine. I like Rollins as the face of Raw. They're just booking him like shit. I'm not saying, oh, Rollins is the face of Raw, but never take the championship on him, or never take the championship off of him. Obviously not. I mean, Roman Reigns was the face of Raw for so long, but he wasn't always champion. In fact, he was, not champion more often than not. Roman Reigns, aside from that 1 or 2 month Universal Championship reign last year, had not been WWE champion or world champion since 2016. Since the brand split was brought back in the summer of 2016. That's amazing. That is amazing. And even then, he won the championship for what? He held it. He won it at WrestleMania 32 over 3 years ago. And then he lost it at Money in the Bank and never got it back. So, again, with Roman Reigns and people like that, like, he wasn't champion all the time. Rollins does not always need to be the champion of Raw in order to be the face of Raw. So, I would honestly make Rollins the top heel on Raw. I would keep him I would have Rollins remain on Raw. I would turn him heel at some point. Who do you have replace him as the top face on Raw? I mean, yeah, Daniel Bryan, maybe. I don't think so, though. Kevin Owens would be a good one. He'd be a good pick, I think. I think he and Rollins could have some good matches like they did a few years ago. If not KO, though, I mean, that's the real question. Who else did they even have as baby faces that could replace Kevin Owens? Ricochet. If they built him up strong enough, he could be that guy. Strowman, that ship sailed years ago, but I think Ricochet would be good for that spot if they built him up strong enough. And I think they should. The guy's great. Samoa Joe, I mean, again, that time has probably passed, but I'm just spitballing here. Anyway, Jeremy's second question, are the people that are already saying The Fiend is ruined overreacting? Do you think Seth's face run is dead now? No, The Fiend is not ruined. I said that earlier. He's not ruined. People are overreacting when they say that. They're not overreacting when they say the match sucked on Sunday. That was a terrible main event. I cannot stress that enough. Is Seth's face run dead now? Yeah. I mean, people were saying, turn him heel months ago when he was saying the dumb shit about Will Ospreay and Jon Moxley in interviews and on social media. I think now it's more apparent than any other point that Rollins would be better off as a heel. He's been a face now for 3 years. The weird thing is that Rollins has been a face now longer than he was a heel from 2014 to 2016. I don't think enough people realize that, which is kind of crazy. Rollins has been a babyface longer than he ever was a heel on his own, which is kind of crazy because he was an amazing heel there for a while from when he first turned on the Shield, had genuine heat for breaking up the Shield, becoming world champion, had a great run as world champion in 2015. I think he should go back to that at some point. I always said, he'd be great as a face, he'd be likable, and he has been up until recently. But I think he's kind of grown stale in the role. Going back to being a heel might work best for him. And to replace him, I don't know. That's the real question. Again, Ricochet, do you have to be Strowman? God, I hope not. I think Strowman's on his way to SmackDown anyway. I'm not sure. I really don't know. Daniel Bryan, I guess. Maybe Kevin Owens. But, who do you have as the faces on SmackDown then if you move Kevin Owens? They don't really have many genuine baby faces on any of these shows right now. AJ's a heel, Samoa Joe's a heel, McIntyre should be a babyface. They need more real babyfaces. They need more genuine, likable babyfaces than they do right now. I think they're pretty good heel-wise, and they could turn Rollins eventually, but they need more faces, and I think turning a guy like McIntyre might, help with that. I know that's not your question, but I think to replace Seth as the top face on Raw, not Daniel Bryan, maybe Kevin Owens, but maybe Drew McIntyre or Ricochet would work just as well. His next question had a bit of a scenario here. His question was, they should have had Braun versus Seth at Clash of Champions end in a no contest with The Fiend attacking both, setting up a triple threat match at Hell in a Cell inside the cell. Seth manages to retain, pinning Braun and leading to The Fiend versus Seth at Survivor Series with The Fiend beating Seth. Do you think WWE would have been better off doing this instead? I mean, anything is better than what they did on Sunday, but I don't like that idea either. I didn't want a three-way Hell in a Cell. I know Bray attacked Braun, I think before Clash of Champions or right after Clash of Champions, and people were like, oh, maybe he'll get added to the match. I'm glad he didn't. Braun is not a threat to that championship. We know he's not winning. Stop putting him in main event for the titles. Stop putting him in main events for the championship if he's not going to fucking win. It just does more damage. It just hammers home that he's a friggin' loser. So I'm glad they didn't do that. I mean, again, it would have been better than what they did, but people still would have been upset that The Fiend did not win the championship. Because if The Fiend is going for the title, he has to win. Granted, he did it on Sunday, but he still would have been a loser. I know he would not have been pinned, but a three-way match, if you don't pick up the win, you're still a loser. So I don't like that scenario either. But again, anything would have been better than what they did on Sunday. At RJ_Marceau, Mr. Marceau's question was, and I cannot wait to see Mr. Marceau later, but his question was, do you think with their new heel turn, Kairi Sane and Asuka may lose the traditional Joshi attire? It seems to have done wonders for Io Shirai in NXT and gives them their own identity. P.S. I love the green mist. Oh, I know you do, RJ. He always has. He loved it when Tajiri did it. He loved it when friggin' Kenzo Suzuki did it. He loves it when anyone does the green mist. And now Asuka can add her name to that list. But anyway, yeah, I'm happy with the heel turn, like I said earlier. Will this lead to a change in attire? I hope so. Asuka's been wearing the same gear now, as colorful as it is, and it's great. Matches her hair very nicely. She's been wearing the same kind of gear for like 3 or 4 years now, ever since she debuted. So yeah, ditching that, getting better attire. Maybe not exactly replicating what Io Shirai has, but something along those lines where they established their own identity. Asuka was already fine on her own, but they ruined her after having her lose to Charlotte last year, doing nothing with her all of 2018, having her win the SmackDown Women's Championship, sure, for like 3 months, but she did nothing as champion, except tap out Becky, but even then, that was quickly forgotten about. She lost the championship, did nothing for the better part of 2019, teamed up with Kairi, did nothing, won the championships, and here we are. So turning them heel, great idea. We'll see what happens with their attire and theme song. They need a real theme song, none of this mixed shit where they play one and then the other. That's so lazy. I think someone pitched this to Solomonster a while ago. But if done right, an Io Shirai, Kairi Sane, Asuka stable would be fucking sick. Like the Triad or Triad, whatever it was called. The Black Lotus clan from Lucha Underground, which also involved, actually, ironically enough, Kairi Sane and Io Shirai. And then some other woman. But yeah, they actually faced Pentagon Jr. in that match. That gauntlet match on Lucha Underground years ago, like 2016 or so. They were in that match. And now they're in WWE, which is cool. But yeah, becoming heels, joining together might be cool. But again, I say if done right, because I feel like WWE would fucking squander that quicker than anything. So I would love to see that happen in NXT. I don't think it will, but it'd be cool if Io Shirai became NXT Women's Champion, and then Sane and Asuka brought the women's tag titles with them to NXT, which they could. Honestly, now going forward with the draft on Friday, and people have been asking, what does this mean for the women's tag team titles? How does this mean they're going to be defended? I would assume they remain dual branded or tri-branded, whatever, or they can show up on any brand. I don't like that idea, though, because if you really want to do a hard brand split and have people take it seriously, you have to have people assigned to one brand or the other, or whatever show it might be, including NXT. None of the jumping show shit, have them on one show and that's it, including the champions. The 24/7 title shit it's nonsensical. It doesn't really matter anyway. You can have that defended at pay-per-views and have SmackDown people face Raw there, Raw stars there. It doesn't really matter. For the women's tag titles, move Asuka and Kairi Sane to NXT. Move them back to NXT. Join up with Io Shirai and do Io Shirai and Asuka and Kairi Sane as a heel stable down there. Put the belt on Io Shirai and you have yourself one golden, awesome fucking stable to women in NXT. I think that'd be great, but that's just my opinion. At the _Derbinator to be exact, his question was, any particular wrestler or wrestlers you want on a different brand with the upcoming draft? Yes, several. Well, I'm not going to give away all my picks because I'm doing an article about it for Bleacher Report on Thursday, tomorrow. Kind of running down all the people I want to see switch shows, where I think people would be best. So I'll do that list tomorrow. It's a pretty hefty list. But off the bat, Brock Lesnar's got to officially go to SmackDown. That kind of goes without saying. You can't have the WWE Champion and the Universal Champion on the same show, which they technically are right now. Brock Lesnar should be on SmackDown. That's a given. I would keep Rollins where he is. I would keep Wyatt where he is on Raw. I would keep Bryan where he is on SmackDown, like I said earlier. I would keep Nakamura where he is. I would keep AJ where he is. I guess they could switch the mid-card titles again if they wanted to. I wouldn't, just because I don't think it's necessary. Nakamura has never been on Raw before, and AJ was always better on SmackDown, but I would keep them where they are. Do not split up the OC again, which they did in the last draft 3 years ago. Do not do that shit again. So those are a few of my thoughts on the draft. I'll speak more about it. I'll talk more about it on Wrestle Rant Radio tomorrow and in the article going up for Bleacher Report first thing Thursday morning. At Iwagu91, as we wind down here, we still got a number of questions to go, but I do got to speed it up a bit. His first question was, your thoughts on the Hell in a Cell structure being colored red since last year? I think it's dumb. It doesn't ruin the match for me. I'm more of a traditionalist. I would rather see it just be steel. I think it's more menacing to see the steel of the Hell in a Cell as opposed to being red. I know they do that because it's a red pay-per-view cue. I mean, I guess it's better than having the pink ropes in there for Breast Cancer Awareness Month, which they've done many times before. I don't think they're doing that this year with the pink rope. They used it for years and years. I don't notice on Raw or the pay-per-view if they were doing that this year. I don't think they are. I know they have it on the banner. I'm not sure if they're doing the pink rope, though. I don't think so. But anyway, I don't think they've done it in recent years anyway with the brand split. With the blue ropes for SmackDown and stuff like that. I don't think they've done it in a while anyway. Regardless, I don't like it. I'd rather see it go back to being the regular cell structure color. It doesn't ruin the match for me, but nitpicking, yeah, I don't really like it. Did you catch AEW Dark? Yeah, as I said earlier, I did watch it, enjoyed it. My full written review is up right now on nextairwrestling.net. Do you expect Darby Allin to face Chris Jericho next week on Dynamite? I do. Darby Allin is facing Jimmy Havoc tonight, with the winner facing Chris Jericho next week for the AEW World Championship. Jimmy Havoc versus Chris Jericho does nothing for me, but Darby Allin is great. I'm a big fan of his. He had a great match with Shima, I think his name is. I still don't know how you properly pronounce that name. Is it Sima? Is it Chima? Is it Shima? I don't know. I think it's Shima. But he had a great match with Shima on AEW Dark last night. Darby Allin did. And I think he's beating Jimmy Havoc tonight. And I think we're getting Darby and Chris Jericho next week. Now, I don't think Darby Allin's becoming the champion. But as he has been for the last couple months now, I think he'll look great in defeat. Darby Allin is a hell of a talent. After seeing him in person multiple times, the guy is really, really good. His next question here. Do you recall Lance Cade and him being involved in the very acclaimed feud between Shawn Michaels and Chris Jericho in 2008? I do. I mean, that was the year that I started watching wrestling, so I remember that year in WWE very, very well. I do remember Lance Cade. I mean, how can you forget the guy? I mean, he didn't do a lot in WWE, so I wouldn't blame you if you forgot about him. But, you know, he's a former World Tag Team Champion. If you don't remember Lance Cade on his own, you definitely remember Lance Cade and Trevor Murdoch. They were together for, 3 or 4 years on the Raw roster? They were around for a while. But anyway, so after he split up from Trevor Murdoch, which was so random. I mean, at the time I didn't really understand it because I just started watching the show. I think he split away from Murdoch right after I started watching. So I didn't really get it or really care. But then he got recruited by Chris Jericho. And I guess the whole story was, the reason why they did it was because Lance Cade was legitimately trained by Shawn Michaels. And Chris Jericho at that time was feuding with Shawn Michaels. So it made sense for Cade and Jericho to become an item. Cade was supposed to be Chris Jericho's heavy. I think Jericho mentioned in his book before he wanted a heavy. I think he had other ideas in mind for who it would be, but they ultimately settled on Lance Cade. I don't know if he chose Lance Cade or if that was the WWE's decision. I forgot. I got to read the book again or, freshen up my memory on what actually happened. But I thought Cade and Jericho were a really good pairing. They were together, honestly, for a little while. They were together for a minute. They were together throughout June, July, August, September. I think Cade, so what happened was he got in some sort of incident on an airplane or whatever. I just started watching wrestling at this point, so I don't really remember all that well. But I think he got in some sort of altercation on the plane where he was like drunk or something like that, and he had some public incident, and they dropped him. Either that or he had some sort of pill issue, and he wouldn't go to rehab. And I don't know if they wrote him off. I think that happened. So he had a match on Raw with Shawn Michaels, where Michaels just beat the shit out of him. And he got his, Cade got his comeuppance for costing Michaels the World Heavyweight Championship multiple times throughout the feud with Chris Jericho. I think at Unforgiven 08 specifically, Cade interfered and cost... No Mercy. Cade interfered in the ladder match with Jericho and Michaels and cost Michaels the World Heavyweight Championship. He wasn't the champion going in, but he cost him his shot to become the World Heavyweight Champion. So Michaels took out all of his anger on Lance Cade on an episode of Raw, maybe the very next night, like beating the shit out of him in a street fight, and then he was released like the next day. So I don't know if they buried him on Raw because they knew they were going to release him. I thought the incident happened after he got buried on Raw. I don't remember. But I did like the pairing. It's a shame that it got cut short. It's a shame he got fired. He had a lot of potential. And it's even worse that he ultimately died a few years later. I think because of some sort of heart attack or something along those lines. Maybe stemming from that issue a few years earlier. He had some problems outside of the ring, but he's unfortunately no longer with us. I think he passed away in 2010, which is even worse. But I did enjoy Cade. I thought he had a lot of potential. And I did like his involvement in the Jericho-Michaels feud back in 2008. Very fond memories of that as a wrestling fan. As strange as that sounds. At Scarlet1 from Twitter, did you hear about Randy Orton's Twitch gaming stream in which he was possibly drunk, praised AEW, and used a certain N-word? Yes, I did hear about that. First, I heard about him praising Sammy Guevara and AEW Dynamite, which was cool. He said it had a big show feel. He thought Sammy was great. He said he would love to work with Sammy Guevara. It was really cool. I never thought a Randy Orton gaming stream is where I would hear Randy Orton praise the opposition, but here we are. 2019 has been a weird year in a good way, and a bad way, but a good way too. I heard about that. I heard about the explicit language he used on the stream. Obviously, you shouldn't be doing that. I understand, whatever. I get it, but it's nothing he should be fired for. But it was a little insensitive. Not just that it was insensitive. I mean, some people didn't really think it was all that funny, and rightfully so. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, people are too sensitive in 2019. I don't really care too much about that. My standpoint is, you're a public figure, and he knows he's never going to be fired. He knows that WWE, especially with AEW being a thing now, they would scoop him up in 2 seconds. He knows he'll never get fired by WWE because they would love to keep him. They don't want him to go to AEW. So I get it. And if he wants to praise AEW, talk about CM Punk, I think that's fine. I really don't care about that. I think that's kind of funny, to be honest with you. And I know he kind of let it out as an accident because you can kind of tell if you hear the clip. He's like, oh shit, I kind of just said that when I probably shouldn't have. If you're a public figure, you shouldn't be doing that. It's not great publicity. It died down fairly quickly because it wasn't that big of a deal. He obviously didn't mean it as like a racist thing or whatever. He was obviously just joking around, but still, you shouldn't be saying that if you're a public figure on somewhere as public as Twitch. So I would stray away from him saying shit like that, but the AEW stuff, the CM Punk stuff, I thought was hilarious. And he's not wrong, it was a very good show, but it's just hilarious to me how he thinks he can say whatever he wants, because he'll never get fired, which is absolutely true. Best and worst of the Wednesday Night Wars, number 1, night 1. I thought it was very good overall. I did watch Dynamite over NXT on Wednesday last week. I don't know if that'll be the case every week going forward, but it was for night 1 because I wanted to say, hey, I watched AEW Dynamite live, and it was a very good show. NXT I thought was better. Really not many things that I would say that were the worst of the Wednesday Night Wars night 1. MJF and Brandon Cutler was very quick and throwaway. I'm glad it was a nice solid showcase for MJF. But there really wasn't much more to the match other than that. Rio and Nyla Rose, I thought the finish was really good. I thought they picked up the pace nicely in the final few minutes. The overall match, I was not a big fan of. I saw a lot of people saying, oh, great women's match, this is amazing. Their division needs a lot of fucking work. A lot of work. But it was a good match down the stretch, I will say that. There really wasn't anything else about the show that I would say was overly bad. The Kevin Smith segment, it was great to see Kevin Smith on the show, but the segment within Helico and Jack Evans was kind of dumb. It was kind of a waste of time. NXT, there really wasn't anything overly bad about NXT either. Because even the lesser matches were good. Like the weakest match on the show is Danny Burch and Pete Dunne. And that says a lot because the match was really good, you know? It was a good, solid, hard-hitting match. So I thought NXT had a great night as well. But yeah, there really wasn't anything about the shows that I would say, oh my God, that was terrible, never do that again, or whatever. Oh, that definitely gives this company the advantage. I mean, AEW, I thought NXT was the better show. AEW had their first show. It was a very strong show. NXT just had the better show, not because of AEW doing anything wrong, but because they had better matches and better moments with the returns and whatnot. I don't know if that'll be the case this week. I guess we'll find out. But I thought it was a very first good effort from both shows on night one. Best and worst of Hell in a Cell. This is an easier one because there was a lot of bad at that pay-per-view. Best obviously being the first Cell match. Becky and Sasha, like I said earlier, phenomenal match. Fantastic opener. It was all downhill from there. I did like Bryan and Roman versus Harper and Rowan. I thought that was a really good match. I thought they had a really, really good match. After that it was all downhill. Charlotte and Bayley was really flat. Corbin and Gable was good. The crowd didn't really care, though, unfortunately. I liked the match, but the crowd just could not give two shits, and I don't really blame them. There was nothing on the line. There was no build. It was just kind of there. There was that. What else did we have? Lacey and Natalya on the kickoff show. Who could possibly give a shit? The women's tag team match was good. The women's tag team title match was good. Not great, but it was good. It was probably the best Nikki Cross Alexa Bliss match I've seen so far. The main event was trash. What else even was there? Orton and Ali had a good match. It was a good match, but nothing like worth writing home about. The overall show was very mediocre. There was nothing overly bad except for the main event. Just a lot of forgettable matches. But the best was easily the opener. And the worst was easily the main event. So a tale of two matches here, a tale of two shows, where you kick off the show on a great note and then go fucking right off the hill, right off the hinges, or right off the rails is the expression I was looking for there with the main event. Scarlett's next question here. Supposedly, the reasoning behind Wyatt and Rollins was because Vince wants Rollins, along with Becky, Charlotte, and Brock, to be the top champions heading into the new era. Any thoughts on that, and those being the four faces of the quote-unquote new era? Brock and new era don't really go together. The guy's been around now for almost 2 decades. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I don't blame them for putting the belt on Brock. I don't mind that really that much. I thought as much as I thought I would, to be honest with you. Maybe I will in a month or two. Ask me again at the end of 2019 if I still have a problem with Brock being champion. I probably will. For now, I don't mind it. They're on Fox. Smackdown needs ratings. As long as you'll be more active, which he probably won't be, but I know he's making a ton of appearances between now through Survivor Series, but after that, who the hell knows? But anyway, we'll see what happens to it. Rollins, like I said earlier, can still be the face of the flagship show, or what was the flagship show, and I think it still will be, Raw will be, but even though SmackDown's on Fox, without being champion. He doesn't need the title. The Fiend needs the belt more than Rollins does. He's the hottest act. They should put the belt on the hottest act. And that's the Fiend Bray Wyatt. So I don't agree with that. I don't know. I haven't seen that report anywhere. Maybe it's something that came out last night and I missed it, but I haven't seen that reported anywhere. Anywhere credible anyway. I mean, I guess it makes sense, but... And they probably want to have Rollins lose the championship to the Fiend ultimately anyway, because otherwise, why would you do the finish that they did if they weren't going to put the belt on the Fiend? Otherwise, why not have Rollins just beat the Fiend on Sunday and then move on? So I think they're going to put the belt on the Fiend at some point, or at least they should. If not, I don't know what the fuck they're smoking, because the guy is so hot right now. Why squander that by having him lose to Rollins again? Because Sunday, he wasn't pinned, but a loss is a loss. He didn't walk away with the championship. It's still a failure. He's still a failure because he didn't walk away with the title. He's not ruined by any stretch. But let's not paint this as anything but a loss for Bray Wyatt, because that's exactly what it was. He wasn't pinned, but he didn't win either. So the guy's a loser. He needs to win the next title match he has with Rollins. Regardless of what they think about this new era, Are they going to be the champions going forward for the next 6 months of this new era? No, and they shouldn't be. That'd be stupid. They need to put the belt on The Fiend. Charlotte, who cares? Like, she's a 10-time champion. I could not give two shits about Charlotte being champion, and I really don't. Becky being champion for now is fine until Shayna comes along or someone else that's hotter than Becky. Sasha could have been that person. The fact that it's not is not that big of a deal. But Rollins, though, needs to drop that championship to The Fiend. Because if it's not The Fiend, I don't know who else can beat Rollins. And no one else should. No one else should. Because there is no one hotter on Raw or SmackDown right now than The Fiend. And for them to not put the championship on that guy is just criminally stupid. It's one of the dumbest things they have probably ever done, at least in a long time. To squander the momentum that this guy has by not putting the championship on him eventually. Unbelievable. Last question of the day, also from Scarlet One. Did you hear about Jeff Hardy's latest arrest? I fucking hate answering questions like this, I really do, because it breaks my heart with Jeff Hardy. I'm a big fan of his. I consider him a role model, and then he goes ahead and does dumb shit like this. I haven't addressed this on Twitter at all. I think it was pretty self-explanatory. It just sucks. It's a bad situation. So it was likely alcohol. So Alexis looked into it. It was in the report that we saw, it was a DWI as opposed to a DUI. In driving while impaired, intoxicated, whatever, sometimes can mean drugs. I don't think drugs were involved in this. I don't think he's done drugs in a long time. It's really just the alcohol thing now. He was driving intoxicated. The cops pulled him over after they saw him pick up a 6-pack of beer and then drive and swerve in the road, and he was weaving all over the place. One of these days, he's going to get himself killed. He's going to kill someone else, which is even worse because they didn't do anything wrong, you know? They got to put an end to this shit. I don't know if he has to go back to rehab. I don't know what needs to happen to fix this dude. But it's a serious issue. It's not one or two incidents. He had an issue last March, in March of 2018, right before he came back. He got arrested earlier this year, back in July, for being intoxicated on like a boardwalk or something like that. And then he was drinking and driving again. And then there was like some details that came out yesterday that he had a bloody nose, he was dried up, and he said he got in a fight with his wife. I don't know if that's true or not. And if so, that's even worse, that there's trouble at home. So it's not really any of our business, but the fact the guy got arrested again for drinking and driving is fucking embarrassing. And WWE shouldn't be embarrassed too. They should absolutely be embarrassed as well. They put out the same statement all the time about, it's their choice, blah, blah, blah. It's their actions. But you're the fucking company. It's not going to look too good on WWE when this guy gets in an accident, kills himself and someone else. And then they're going to be like, oh, we tried our best. Then they're going to fucking backtrack like nobody's business. Why not just stop it while they still can, but either putting the guy in rehab, suspending him, whatever, you know? It's become a real issue at this point. A real issue. Between him and the Usos, it's become a real problem in this company for people to think that it's okay to drink and drive because they didn't hurt anyone, they didn't hurt themselves. It's okay. Why not? We'll just do it again. You know, we didn't hurt anyone the first time. Why not this time, you know? That's how accidents happen. They gotta stop this shit while they still can. It's embarrassing. And I love the guy, and hopefully he's still at Ringside Fest next month in New York City so I can have him sign my replica Intercontinental Championship belt. But it's embarrassing because it just keeps happening. And I thought he was okay. They put out that great special on the Hardys last year about how they got over their demons, and Matt did. Apparently Jeff didn't, so maybe he has to leave the WWE. He has to leave WWE to fix himself. I don't know. But it's become a really embarrassing situation, and I pray for the guy. I pray for him. Hopefully he gets better before something really seriously bad happens. And that's going to do it, guys. I hate to end it on a negative note, but that was episode 306 of #AskGSM for October 9th, 2019. Thank you guys, as always, for sending in the questions. Very much appreciate it. If you want to send in a question to the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the #AskGSM. Find me on Facebook. Leave a question there at facebook.com/gram.gsm.matthews. Leave a question on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section of this very video. I'll include it in next week's edition. So with all that being said, guys, enjoy NXT tonight. Enjoy AEW Dynamite. Enjoy wrestling. Have a great rest of your week. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.